Picture this. It's either the hottest day of the year or the absolute coldest night. And then, silence. That reassuring hum from your air conditioner or your furnace is just gone. If you've ever felt that sinking feeling in your stomach, well, you are in exactly the right place. We're going to break down why your HVAC system fails, what you can do about it, and, maybe most importantly, how to stop it from happening again.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll look at the incredible battle your system fights against the weather every single day. Then, we'll get into the nitty-gritty and see which parts usually break under all that pressure. After that, we are going to tackle that huge repair or replace question with a super simple rule. We'll also peek behind the curtain of a service call so you know what to expect. And finally, we'll talk about how to prevent this whole crisis from happening in the first place.
All right, first things first, we gotta set the stage, because it's not just about the machine itself, right? It's about the constant war it's waging against the elements right outside your window. I mean, it's the question every single homeowner has asked, usually while they're sweating through their t-shirt or shivering under a pile of blankets. But the answer? It's not just bad luck. It's really just physics. Those extreme temperatures that make you miserable are the very same things that are pushing your equipment to its absolute breaking point. That's exactly it. In climates that have these brutal, intense seasons, the hot, sticky summers followed by a deep freeze winter, these systems get absolutely no rest. They go from fighting crushing humidity for months on end to then battling sub-zero temperatures. For them, there's just no off-season.
So what's really happening here is all these things are piling on top of each other. The heat and humidity mean your AC runs nonstop. Then flip the switch and your furnace is pushed to its absolute limit for months. All this cycling, this extreme operation, it just wears out parts so much faster. And it's even worse in older homes that might be a little drafty because the system has to work overtime just to keep up.
Okay, so we know the system is under a ton of stress. But now let's see what actually happens when it breaks. What are the specific parts that usually give up first?
So one of the most common culprits, especially in the summer, is a frozen evaporator coil. You can just think of this thing as the part of your AC that actually does the cold part, but when it gets completely covered in a block of ice, air can't get through, and suddenly your system stops cooling your house, even though you can still hear it running.
And hey, you can often spot the warning signs yourself. You might see actual ice forming on the copper lines outside. Or maybe you notice the air coming out of your vents feels really weak. Or maybe it's not even cold. But here's the key. The ice is usually just a symptom. The real problem is often something simple, like a clogged air filter or maybe a refrigerant leak.
Okay, next up, we've got two absolutely critical components. You can think of the capacitor as the little battery that gives your system's motors that jolt they need to get started. And the compressor? Well, that's the heart of the whole operation. It's the engine that pumps the refrigerant through the system. So if your outdoor unit just kind of hums but never really kicks on, that's often a bad capacitor. Not too bad. But if you hear grinding noises or the circuit breaker keeps tripping over and over, that could be the compressor. And that, my friends, is a much bigger deal. In fact, a failed compressor is pretty much one of the most expensive repairs you can run into. Now let's switch over to heating for a second. This component right here, this is arguably the single most important safety feature in your entire furnace. The heat exchanger's job is to keep the clean air you breathe completely separate from the dangerous toxic fumes that the furnace creates.
The warning signs here can be pretty subtle, maybe a weird smell when the heat kicks on, or a bit of soot inside the unit. But the danger is incredibly serious. A crack in this thing can leak deadly, odorless carbon monoxide right into your home. This is totally not negotiable. You do not repair a cracked heat exchanger. For your family's safety, it pretty much always means the entire furnace has to be replaced, period.
And that brings us to the big, expensive question that every single homeowner with an older system eventually has to ask. Do you keep sinking money into repairs, or is it finally time to just replace the whole thing? Well, let's look at a really helpful guideline. There's this really straightforward formula you can use, and it's called the $5,000 rule. It's just a quick little bit of math to help you figure out if you're about to throw good money after bad on a system that's already on its last legs. Okay, here's how easy it is. Let's say you've got a 12-year-old system, and it's going to cost about $600 to fix it. So you just multiply the cost by the age. 600 times 12 gives you $7,200. Since that number is way over the $5,000 threshold, the rule is basically telling you that a replacement is probably the smarter financial move in the long run. And really, this gets right to the heart of it, doesn't it? A repair is definitely cheaper today, but you're still left with an old, inefficient system that could just break again next month. A full replacement costs more upfront for sure, but you get a brand new, reliable machine, a full warranty, and way better energy efficiency that will literally save you money on every single utility bill going forward.
So you've decided to make the call. Whether you're getting a repair done or just a quote for a new system, the whole process can feel a little intimidating. So let's pull back the curtain and demystify what a good, honest service call should actually look like.
You know, a professional service call really shouldn't be complicated. It should follow 3 simple steps. First, you schedule the visit and they give you a clear time window. Second, the technician comes out and diagnoses the actual problem, no guessing, and they give you a clear upfront price for the fix. And third, and this is important, only after you approve it, they do the work and then test everything to make sure it's running perfectly. And this right here is the bottom line. A trustworthy technician is there to solve your problem, not to sell you a bunch of stuff you don't need. You should always get a clear explanation in plain English with options and fair upfront pricing. You should never, ever feel pressured or confused. Okay, we've spent a lot of time reacting to a crisis, so for our final section, let's talk about how to avoid being in this stressful situation in the first place. It really all comes down to shifting to a proactive mindset. If you need one single reason, just one, to think about getting your system maintained, this is it. A typical tune-up might cost you about $150, but a major repair, like that compressor we were just talking about, that can easily cost $1,200 or a lot more. The math really speaks for itself, doesn't it? And just look at what a tune-up actually prevents. It directly addresses all those common failures we just went over. A technician cleans the coils so they don't freeze up. They test the capacitor before it decides to fail on a 95-degree day. And they inspect that critical heat exchanger for any safety problems. Honestly, it's the best thing you can do to make your system last longer.
But look, even with perfect maintenance, nothing lasts forever, especially not in a tough climate. In general, you can probably expect to get about 12 to 15 years from an air conditioner, and maybe 15 to 20 from a furnace. Just knowing these numbers can help you plan for the future instead of getting caught by a nasty surprise. So, we'll end with this thought. Your HVAC system is one of the hardest working, most expensive appliances in your entire home, and it really never gets a day off. So when was its last checkup? Because being proactive is the single best way to make sure it's there for you when you need it the most.